Thanks for tuning in, and welcome back to the shop. This is our 2013 Mitsubishi Fuso FG, and we're about to turn it into a camper. Welcome to episode 75. So in preparation for putting the walls in this, I've taken the entire camper box off the truck. It's standing on its own legs right now, and I'm about to lower it using my hoist as far down to the ground as I can to make it easier to put the walls in. But before I do that, I've forgotten 2 welds on the front. Now, what I didn't show you in between the last episode and this episode is what I've done on the spare tire well. I've finished up putting in the 2 upper bent pieces, and I've welded the flange all the way around the inside and the outside of the tire. Now, those are not welded fully on the outside to the tire well, but the inner ones are. Still a little bit of welding to do on that, but it was close enough to get the walls in. With all that, it's been a lot of work to get it this far, and tomorrow is going to be a really big day. See you then.
Today, I'll be installing some of the composite wall panels that I purchased back in episode 25. This is a big step in the project, and thankfully about a week ago, I got an offer for assistance from someone who you may recognize, or at least you may recognize his truck. That's right, Pierre Carl, who bought the twin to our truck and built it into this amazing work of art, is here to help. In the early, foggy morning, we started by bringing the first panel out of storage. This one is slightly longer and will be used for the front and rear walls. The assembly sequence is side walls first, so for now we just set that panel aside and bring in one of the 14-foot long panels. Though these are lightweight composite panels, this 14x7 panel still weighs in at just under 150 pounds. 2 people can move it fairly easily, but it's not light as a feather. With the first wall panel in the shop, we take a few measurements to confirm what trimming we need to do and then lay it out on the panel, double and triple checking that everything is right in both English and French. With the lines laid out on the panels and some tape to prevent scratches from the saws, it's time to start cutting. Other than my dirty socks, you'll notice that we put the panel down on some 2-inch thick styrofoam. This helps protect the panel from being scratched by the floor, and we don't have to worry about the saw blade depth cutting into the supporting structure. This foam will eventually be used to insulate the box floor, and coincidentally is left over from when we built our Fuso FE box truck you see parked outside. This is my Porter cable, type 6 router. We've got a bit in the bottom, and Pierre Carl has come up with this simple, genius piece of plywood as a guide to go along the edge of the sheets. Now, radiusing these corners off may seem like a bit of a strange step to take, but it is necessary for me because of the way that my frame is put together. The front and rear aluminum pieces of my frame are bent, and therefore they have a radius in the corner. We need to match that radius with the panel in order for the panel to sit all the way into the corner. Along the bottom of the frame, it's a side plate that is stitch welded onto box tube, and we need somewhere for the welds to clear. Therefore, the front, bottom, and back of each of these panels will get a radius. Cutting these composite panels has turned out to be a lot easier than I was expecting, and I'm not using any special equipment. This is my 20-volt DeWalt cordless saw, and I'm using a 40-tooth carbide blade with it. Now, I also use a 40-tooth carbide blade when I'm cutting aluminum. However, that blade was a little thicker, and if you're going to do either of these things, I definitely recommend that brand, which I'll put a link in the description, as this blade seems to wander a little bit as it gets used. The thicker blade doesn't seem to do that. Now, before we go and glue the next panel in place, we're going to do a dry fit so that we don't find out we need to do some trimming or adjustment of the edges while we've got glue stuck all over the panel. This is where the lifetime of experience in cabinet making that Pierre Carl has comes into play.
The precision of his measurements and accurate layout make this piece pop in like a dream. I can make things fit together, but I kind of feel like he uses a Jedi Force and the pieces just want to fit together perfectly. Clamping things in place allows us to do a check of the metalwork to be sure that the flanges are going to make contact and see if any small tweaks need to be made around the areas with welds.
Now that we've completed the dry fit on the panel, we're going to place a strip of 3M VHB tape around the perimeter of the aluminum. This is going to hopefully serve two purposes. Number one, as soon as the panel's in place, this will hold it from shifting while we're putting all the clamps on. And number two, hopefully this should stop any excess glue from pushing out onto the face of the panel while we're squeezing the clamps down. If the glue runs up to the tape, the pressure should actually push the excess glue backwards into the joint.
With the tape in place, I'm putting a bead of adhesive along the face of the aluminum all the way around the mating surface. Next, we carefully move the panel into place and press it into the sealant and oh, the tape. We gotta peel the backing off the tape. Pulling the panel away just enough, we peeled the backing off so the tape could do its job and then pressed the panel back into place. Now we have to put 1,000,000 clamps around the edge to hold things tight. Okay, maybe it was like 10 across the top and 5 or 6 on the front and the back. Pierre Carl brought a bunch of clamps and some really great spreader bars to help push the bottom tight. After cutting and fitting the second wall panel, we again put a strip of tape, you can see the red backing here, and a line of adhesive all the way around the perimeter. This cordless caulking gun really makes life easier, a very worthwhile tool to have for a job like this. This time we remembered to peel the tape backing off and again pressed the panel into the adhesive and used 2 billion clamps, okay maybe more like 20, to secure the panel in place. With all the clamps in place, we checked that we had good contact all the way around to make sure that we didn't have any spots that would end up improperly glued. Hey, it's starting to look like a thing.
Here's how it looks halfway through the day. We've got 2 walls up, and we are about to cut the third panel, which is a 15-foot long by 7-foot high panel, and that is going to make the front and back walls.
Once the adhesive sets, we can remove the 1x1 T-slot. Though it will end up here after the roof is on, it's currently only temporary to stop the top from flopping around. I never would have thought it would take this many clamps to put this assembly together, and to be honest, we could have used more. If you're looking to take on a project like this, I would recommend no less than 40 to 50 clamps if you plan on doing the 2 sidewalls at the same time.
Now you may have seen us carrying these panels using a round pad handle that appeared to be attached to the panel. What these are actually suction cups, and these make a huge difference in the ability to carry these around because this is literally a handle on the side of a flat panel. They're vacuum attached, so you just release the vacuum and it comes off, and then to put it on, you just pump the handle and you watch the gauge to know how much pulling force you've got on there and that you're good to lift. Great little addition, makes it a lot easier handling these panels, and of course I got these on Amazon, so I'll leave a link in the description if you're looking to get something like that for yourself.
It's now time to cut the front and back out of the 15-foot panel. A quick inspection to determine if there's a better side to the panel and if that better side should go in or out. Taking a moment to consider where interior cabinets will end up can help hide any minor imperfections in the panel. Double, triple, and quadruple checking les mesures encore une fois, we transferred them over to the panel and this time decided to tape the base of the saw instead of the entire panel, much more efficient. We also decided to use a piece of T-slot as a fence for this long cut instead of relying on a scribed line.
Size. Okay. We'll put 1/116 on this side. On this one is. There's that size. Tick.
The small piece left over after this cut will be used to make the two small pieces on each side of the spare tire pocket as well as the back of the tire pocket. The total wastage from all of these panels is very limited. Because the front panel was almost a square, we cut the finished wall height from the width of the panel and the finished wall width from the length of the panel. Because the rear wall is shorter, we have to trim the width off, which results in the least loss. This means the second cut for the upper rear wall. Was that confusing enough? Am I ever glad Pierre Carl was here to make it make sense? I once again put my best skills to use as being a weight, and Pierre Carl zipped the corners off both the front and rear wall panels with the router. Cutting and routering the fiberglass and foam sure makes a mess, but the end result is totally worth it. Now we can't actually install both the front and back panel as we would end up trapping ourselves in the box, so the back wall won't be going on until I install the camper door, but we can cut and dry fit it now to make sure that everything lines up for a quicker install later. We had a quick discussion of sequencing, confirming measurements, and a few ideas on how to complete the install to help me get the confidence that I need to complete this down the road once I have everything ready. With the dry fit out of the way, we pulled the back wall out and set it aside. You can see here how useful these suction cups really are. Without them, the only place to grab would be the edge of the panel, which disappears when the panel is put into place. It's also much easier to hold the weight on a nice handle instead of trying to grip the edge of the panel, which can have some rough fiberglass edges. This leaves your other hand free to just balance the panel. Now it's time to dry fit the front wall and verify that everything lines up, as well as the panel fitting in square, as the frame does still have some flex to it. Despite the fact that we determined this now most definitely looks like an everyday delivery truck, I assure you that's not what we are building here, and that with time and all the remaining additions, it will slowly begin to look like a real overlanding truck. Speaking of which,
I know a lot of people have been very interested in that tan truck that's parked outside that Pierre Carl has done such a beautiful job putting together. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and the bell so you don't miss an episode, because I have managed to twist his arm and he's given me a tour through it. You'll be seeing it shortly.
with the panel test fitting as it should, we can pull it back out of place and set it off to the side while we put in the tape and adhesive. One other step we have been taking is cleaning all the surfaces with alcohol to ensure we are not leaving behind debris and fingerprints that could cause a failure of the surface bond of the adhesive. Oh, and there are a lot of different adhesives out there, and you really should do some testing with different products to confirm what works best for your specific substrates. I ended up using Sikabond, which is not what I had planned on using, but appears to have very similar properties to what I know others have used. Please don't take my word for it, do some testing. With everything set, we put the last panel of the day into place, got it squared up, and started setting the bars and clamps. You'll notice this panel fits between the sidewalls, so it also helps hold those panels in place for the remainder of the adhesive cure time. With Pierre Carl tightening the spreader bars from the inside, I watched the gap close up on the outside to let him know when things were tight. We made some adjustments until we were satisfied that we had the right fit, and then it was time to step back and admire the work we had done. It feels a bit surreal after all the years of designing, planning, repairing the truck, and building the base to have such a sudden transformation from a wobbly exoskeleton to a big white box. And even though it's not a complete box yet, it feels like a huge step forward. The next morning, we removed the clamps and bars and did a quick inspection. Things are looking good. There are a few small spots where the glue did seem to squeeze past the tape, but it was easily removed with a plastic razor blade and some elbow grease. The whole perimeter will be getting a small fillet of sealant anyway, so a bit of a squish through here and there is no big deal. After removing everything, we loaded Pierre Carl's tools back into his amazing creation. Make sure you subscribe to see more on that. And Pierre Carl headed off on his long journey back home to La Belle Province. If you ever see him on the road, be sure to give a friendly wave, but keep your eyes on the road.
Well, it's a little bit difficult to see, but we do now have 3 of the 7 panels that need to go in here, fully bonded in, ready to go. I'm going to let the glue on these cure for the rest of the week before I do any other work to it, because the next thing I have to do is actually cut a door in so that we can get in and out once we've glued the back wall in. I really can't say enough about how much of an amazing help Pierre Carl was on this project. The knowledge and ability that he has to just know how to do things was phenomenal, and it made a huge difference on how easy this project was to complete. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Obviously, there's more to come. Stick around. Hit subscribe if you haven't already. Don't forget to check the video description for more links and useful information. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.